Hi everyone, I'm here with a very impressive lady. Her name is Ololade Oyebanji. She's an estate manager. She's a professional estate manager. She lives in Lagos. Am I right? You live in
No,
Lagos.
I don't. I
Where do you live?
don't. I live in Ogun State, Jebodi, Ogun State.
Okay, she lives in Ogun State, Nigeria. She's very interested. I mean, she does a lot of feminist advocacy. Welcome again, Lolade. Nice to have you
Thank you
here.
very much to me.
Just for background, we both graduated from the same university. That's Federal University of Technology, Akure, in Ondo State, Nigeria. Interesting thing is that myself and Lolade were not really that friends. I mean, I don't think we ever even had any conversation at all. I can't really remember if we ever did. But
I can't
until more
remember though.
recently, when we, met on a WhatsApp group, hearing some of our views and some of our conversation, I said, okay, yeah, I should have this interview with her. So in terms of your motivation, what's really inspired you to, advocate in the way that you do? I mean, your interest in women's rights, the rights for the girl child and whatnot.
Okay, well, I think my mom is a feminist, but even at that, she didn't have to, force some things down our throats. I grew up in an academic environment, and I'm the first of four children. We're two girls and two boys.
Okay.
And whilst I was growing up, I wasn't made to see myself as a second-class citizen. As in, like, I wasn't made to see that, to think that, oh, boys could do this better. So I didn't realize a lot of things that were wrong in the society at that time. But as I grew up, I started seeing a lot of anomalies, and I was like, what is this? I never saw my brother as being superior to me, and I never saw myself as being inferior. So there were things that my mom didn't really have to sit us down that we just picked unconsciously. And sometime when I was in secondary school, that's high school now, my mom started an NGO. Actually, she
Okay.
co-founded it with one of our colleagues. She's a lecturer. And then she found out that a lot of
That's
girls
in
are,
Obafemi Awolowo University.
yes, Abafemi
Okay.
University. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Oyebanji
Within
quarters.
the staff quarters.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, within the
Okay.
senior staff quarters. So she found out that a lot of female students are harassed, and then they really can't do anything about it. And so it became a burden, and then she and a colleague of ours, they co-founded the organization Women Against Rape, Sexual Harassment, and Sexual Exploitation, usually regarded as WASH.
Okay.
They started talking to girls, and they started going to tertiary institutions when they're invited. So I used to go for some of the programs with them. So I think that was why I really, really had that desire. That was where the desire for such things grew. And I remember when I gained admission into FUTA, it was like my idea was kind of different, out of this world. And people would tell me that, you can't really think like this, like it's not feasible. Are you sure you'll be able to get married and all that? And that's why I tell people that I've always been like this for a long time. If you had known me then, you would have known that this has been my stand. And then again, I work in a tertiary institution
Okay.
right now in Lagos. But even though I live in Ogun State, it's quite close.
Now, how do you do that? Do you commute every day or?
Yes, I do every day. It's in
Wow.
Ekwem, and that's like
Okay.
one
Okay.
end of
Yeah.
Lagos.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Okay.
close. So I realized that, a lot of young girls, their mentalities are messed up. Like, and then the male members of staff, I didn't notice that when I was in school. Like, I didn't know it was that bad. I think in state-owned institutions is really, really terrible. Like, the male members of staff see these girls as, one of the things that they get to enjoy as members of the institution. So I really got uncomfortable, and I'm like, what is this? And a lot of them have messed up mentalities. They don't have very low self-esteem. They think so little of themselves. And that was why I even thought of starting the NGO in the first place. I remember I went to meet their guidance counselor, spoke to some people in the student affairs, And so I decided to start the WhatsApp group and started talking to a few of them. I actually interviewed some of them to hear what they have to say. And I think maybe because of that, I was on the lookout for trainings, and there was one here around here where I live. They were going to do a training for NGOs for about a year, two different trainings, but within 1 year. So I joined them, and that was how I got to know about other NGOs like Teen Girls Enlightenment Initiative and project Naranja. And well, I'm one of their volunteers.
Wow, that's quite interesting. Personally, for me, I'm always impressed when I meet people who, find a kind of a burden in society and say, like a gap in society, maybe something isn't being done right, and then they volunteer to do, even if obviously we don't always have to see things the same way, but, that initiative, being able to take on that responsibility is something that really interests me when I see such things, which is also what you're doing as well. But circling back to your mom, as I know that she's a professor, isn't she?
Yes, yes.
So obviously she has a kind of academic understanding of issues around feminism and the academic
Yes,
framework, so to
yes,
speak. Now, the
yeah.
word feminism in Nigeria
Okay.
seems to be a very dirty word right now, is it?
Yes.
So how do you how do you reconcile that? Because if a lot of people will say, well, I believe in women's rights, but I don't call myself a feminist because people are sometimes trying to dissociate themselves from that word. In fact, on Twitter now, there was this new word going on, feminist coven. It was someone tweeted and then it's gone viral like that. So there's that sort of identification of the word with something not nice, something evil, something sinister, something they're trying to upend the existing order, trying to destroy men and blah, 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 and whatnot. So how do you define feminism and how
Okay.
do you manage reconciling yourself with those tendencies within our society?
Okay. First of all, I will say that people say lots of negative things about feminism because they don't understand what it is. And secondly, we're in a patriarchal society. And so it's more like sometimes it's more or less like women shouldn't be heard.
Okay.
And there's this thing, whether spoken or not, like women are regarded as second-class citizens. So now that women are fighting, the only thing we're asking for, we're only saying women are humans and we have our own rights. So, like I always tell people, we are not trying to deprive men of their own rights. We're only saying give us our rights. And I don't think anybody should have a problem with that. Well, let me start with feminists. A feminist is somebody who supports feminism. And feminism means you're advocating for women's rights. It's a movement, that is aimed at establishing equal rights for women.
Okay.
So, like I said earlier, we're not trying to deprive men of the rights. And it's basically about genders having equal rights and opportunities. Once that is achieved, I don't even think there might not be any need for this movement. So
No,
basically, it's all about
but
that. I know
but
there are
if we've
different kinds
built
of.
if we've built an industry around it, see, let's say that maybe today, maybe some magic happens and there's now equal rights for everyone. We have
Okay.
this, you suddenly think all of those NGOs will disappear, fizzle out, all of those voices will.
Oh, well, they might disappear with time. It's just like saying, okay, and people have been stealing. And then, there are now a lot of advocacy in that area or the things that you need to do. If it stops, there might not be any reason. Or rather, let me say, we don't have to be so active. They might just be in the background. You don't have
So
to
you
make
wouldn't.
so much noise about it again.
Okay, I think I get that logic anyway. The reason why the
Okay.
voice of feminists is so loud in our society is
Because
because,
there's a
there's an
problem.
obvious problem, yeah.
Yes,
And
and we need to address
lately
it.
there's been a lot about issue of rape and what have you. What is around rape, as in what's that word again? Consent. What is
Yes.
consent and what not?
Okay.
Is there any particular case you have been involved in lately, maybe through your volunteering activities or?
Oh, lately, none. But in
Okay.
times past, like I said earlier, I've had to volunteer with WASH, Women Against Rape, Sexual
Okay.
Harassment, and Sexual Exploitation. And I think that's when I really understood that this has nothing to do with what a victim does or does not do.
Does not do.
It's basically about the perpetrator, and anybody can be a victim. Anybody. I've seen children. There was a time my mom was handling a case and they brought some children like 3 and 5 years, and I was wondering, They were handling the case, and they had reported at the palace, and they were going to mess up the place. They said we're going to settle them. And the parents said no, even though they were not rich and they lived in all this face me and face you, properties, but they still said they wanted justice for their children. So WASH took it up. I've seen students who were raped, a lot of cases like that. I've seen young girls raped by their fathers. And, it's very appalling the way people handle it in our society. You almost think it's not possible. Like what I tell people now, these things that are happening, they're not new.
Yeah.
But thank God for social media. People are speaking up more. These things have been existent for a very long time.
Then the thing is, I think for personally, for me anyway, let me not try and generalize. Every time I see stories about, people being violated that way or raped in that way, it feels, I just scroll away. If I just want to scroll away. Like, no, the thought of it is, it's so traumatic, even for me who has not experienced it. How much more the person, but in terms of now, we have cultural issues where there's supposed to be, someone called it a plague of silence, where if you're supposed to be embarrassed or ashamed for yourself, and people are supposed to keep quiet, stigmatized. That's the word. People are stigmatized for such experiences. What do you think, one can do to turn that around such that people are a lot more confident to, not just celebrities now, but even less powerful people, to talk about, their experiences in that way?
First of all, education. A lot of people, stakeholders, need to be educated. Our society has there's a lot of things that we need to change in the way we see some of these things. Why a lot of people don't talk, like you said, is because of the stigma. And when they eventually summon up the courage to even say it, they get blamed for it. And I always say there's absolutely no reason why we should blame a victim. I think we should learn to sympathize with them more. And again, we need to put some things in place in our legal system, right from the police. Just yesterday I was listening to a program. Okay, I actually joined the Zoom meeting. And, they were like, there's a need to train our policemen. People go to the police station to make reports when they've been raped. And they get there, and the first thing the policeman is asking them is, what were you hearing? Why did you go there? And so, it's more or less like you shut the victim up. And the person says, okay, let me just accept it. You tell your family members. And it's so annoying. A lot of the time, family members are more concerned about the image of their family. They really don't consider the victims themselves. And so they settle it without the victim's consent. Like one of the speakers yesterday said, okay, a crime is a crime, whether or not it happens within the family or not. So because it happens within the family does not make it less severe. Because around here, we're so fond of trying to cover up things. A father rapes a child and they're still trying to cover it and trying to say that, okay, it might be a spiritual problem, and, funny things like that. So I think rape is what it is. And as soon as we get that, we need to let people know. Sometimes people are like, but she didn't shout. So it really doesn't matter that somebody did not shout. Does not mean that the person gave a consent. So I think, basically, like I said, we should put some things in place in our legal system. We should train our police, train our medical officers, so that when such cases get to them, they also make a report. They can, encourage those victims to speak out. And our religious organizations too, we need to stop making excuses for rape and stop making victims seem like it's their fault that they were raped in the first place.
Yeah, I think I think that's what makes recently I saw a letter, or he released a press statement. Pastor Adeboye released a press statement about the
I was
rape
really
that took
impressed with
place
that.
in the Redeemed Church auditorium. Then, I think, that kind of sends a very powerful message if someone who has obviously a place of influence in society that way puts out that kind of message, But again, there are two things actually. How do you then So recently, you've had a lot of allegations being made against certain popular figures. One being
Yes,
D'banj, the
yes,
musician, and
yes.
some other maybe some other people like that. Different allegations against them and whatnot. And then there's always the issue of this person has only made an allegation. There's no, how do you prove it? Who is the person lying? Was it a question of consensual sex gone wrong and whatnot? How do we navigate all of those kind of, gray areas, so to speak?
Well, rape cases are actually difficult to prove, especially when it's something that happened like years or decades ago. But like we always tell people in some of the NGOs that I belong to, when you are raped, don't try to take your bath. People tend to, they want to cover up, the shame and everything. Just as you are, report to the police station so that you can have your report to the police station. And of course, if you have been assaulted with your physical injuries, it will be obvious. Then go to the hospital. Let them get samples. We still have that problem in Nigeria. We don't have these testing kits. Let them get samples of these things, the semen and everything. Ensure that they are treated, because people now come down with sexually transmitted infections like HIV. Yeah, I've had people like that. But if they're exposed to the treatments, I think within 72 hours, they will likely not come down with such things as AIDS or pregnancy. So go to the nearest hospital, make a report, and as much as possible, keep all the evidences. It could be a text, it could be a phone conversation, because we've seen cases of people, if it happens, they now call the person, and sometimes the rapists are even bragging on the phone because they feel that, well, you really can't do anything about it. How will people believe you? Even by text message, just try as much as possible, and you can employ the services of lawyer or NGOs. And that's why we need to put out a lot of information out there so that people will know what exactly they need to do when things like that happen. For the case of D'banj, for instance, the NGO that handled, some women actually had to come together, and I'm following one of the women on Facebook. And she said, as soon as the girl was picked up, they harassed her, did a lot of things, and they asked her to delete all the tweets. And I'm like, okay, even if she was lying, why did you have to go to that extent? And after they settled it, they said, okay, they were going to release her, and she wasn't going to pay because they were asking her to pay a huge sum of money from what I heard. And the next morning again, he picked her up and took her to an unknown destination. It took the effort of a lot of women, running around to now, get her out of it. And I'm like, what is this? So, the fact that you have like an edge over someone, it's even a problem in Nigeria. You can use anybody. He feels that, okay, he has the money, he has the influence, and he can get things done. So really, I think, like I said earlier, there are a lot of things that to put in place in our legal system. Over there in other countries outside Nigeria now, when celebrities are accused, it's such a big deal. It affects them. But in Nigeria, it's more like, it's really not a big
there's
deal.
no consequence for.
Exactly. And, it dies down like that. So I think there should be severe penalties for some of these things.
Yeah, in terms of the social consequence of, you being associated with certain things. In some other places, brands will drop them and whatnot. They are, like they say, cancelled.
But
Yeah. I think it's a general problem in our society where, people do all sorts and still win an election. The only time they would lose an election is if they go against the Godfather. They can be very horrible in governance, and as long as the Godfather is still happy, they'll retain their seats, and that's a problem. Now, another thing, where but I also think that instead of a lot of times you have a lot of social media where people are crucified or tried, public trial, so to speak, or media trial. Shouldn't it be that if we fix anyway, you've already mentioned it, by fixing the legal system itself, if people are sure that justice will be done within the court or within the police court system, there'll be
Then there might
a
not be
lot.
any need for social media trial.
Yeah, because a lot of that sometimes boils down to the fact that we are not very confident of our judiciary being able to dispense
Yes.
justice, as it were.
I would say that the social media is still helping because sometimes they take action when they see the noise on social
Yeah,
media.
yeah, yeah, but it shouldn't be that way. What about people who don't have access or who don't have the voice to, I mean, who don't
Yes,
have
yes,
the,
yes.
anyway, um, now another thing that usually comes up is, I know you've already mentioned it, victim shaming and what have you. So if you talk about where do you, I think I've asked you this before, but let me just ask again that where do you draw the line between what is victim shaming and what is sound advice? For instance, if I know that this girl will be exposed in a way that won't be comfortable in this sort of scenario, and I'm offering an advice, please don't go to that place, or that sort of thing. How do you then draw the line between victim shaming and sound advice? Because that's what some people, when we say we are shaming the victims, sometimes that's what people mean. They're just trying to offer sound counsel that, look, you could get hurt in this sort of scenario. Better don't do it.
When you're giving an advice, I think it's best you give it before the thing happens.
Not
Yeah, because when somebody has been raped, you don't now start giving the advice. The harm has been done.
a
What do
kind
you
of
do
I
about
told
it?
you so kind of thing.
You understand? So if you are now starting to tell me that, oh, what were you wearing? It's no longer an advice. It already means that you're blaming me for that what happened. And like I always say, there is absolutely no excuse for rape. When people say it's because of the way the girl was raped, that was what made them rape her. I'm like, oh, is that
What
supposed to be a
about a
sum of
2-year-old, a
punishment?
5-year-old?
I'm like, okay, apart from that, is that supposed to be like, are you trying to correct her? Is that punishment for what she wore? Or you're just trying to satisfy your own pleasure? So it's really not about the victim or what they wear or don't wear. Like I always tell people, if you ask all the women all over the world to cover up, people will still rape. It's
Yeah,
something that has to do with their mind. In fact, for some of them, they need a psychiatric evaluation. There's something, it's not about whether you see people going after people that are well dressed. They rape old women. They rape children. I saw a picture and I really couldn't look at it. A 3-month-old baby that was raped recently. It's really, really sad. How do we explain all that? If we are talking about the way people are dressed. Yes, I support decent dressing, but I still say it. And then, dressing is relative. For
it's
me,
relative. Yeah.
what is decent for me might not be decent. For some people, trousers is not decent. I remember when we went around for sensitization on I think sometime last year, International Day of the Girl
Girl
Child.
child.
I we went to the park and some of them were saying, you're putting on trousers. I know that kind of thing. You women shouldn't wear. And I'm like, really? We are putting on jeans. All of us were decently dressed. And this guy still had a problem with that.
Mm.
So you can imagine, I tried to really drag it with them, but at the point I just thought that, well, they are set in their ways, honestly. And that really was not the point and the time to start arguing with them because we still had to go to other places. So if you're going to, yes, I'll tell you, you need to be careful. But it's not, you need to be careful, not just, it's because there's a problem. A lot of people have problems. There are people that are regular rapists. It's just like saying that, okay, keep your doors locked. But when you are robbed, I do not say, why was your door open? You understand what I'm saying? You don't start
Yeah.
asking, if I'm robbed on the road and I report at the police station, they don't say, what are you doing there at that time? But when it comes to rape issues, we tend to, the way we judge is kind of different. And I don't think it should be like that. So when we want to offer our advice, I think it should come before and not
Not when
after.
an incident
Yes.
has happened. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Now, back to you personally now, and then going into now the reason why we went into rape, talking about rape and all that. It's something that's more or less like on the front burner in our society right now, and it's it comes in with feminism, because obviously more women are raped, obviously. So,
Yes.
and you've talked about your what inspires you, your background, and all of that. I know you're a Christian as well. So, how do you then reconcile your faith with feminism? Is there a link somewhere? Can the two coexist? Can you be a
Yes, they can.
Christian feminist? You know?
Yeah, they can. Like I tell people, I'm a Christian. I'm a feminist, and I have no apology. I don't owe anyone apology for saying that, because I don't think that God sees women as second-class citizens. That's to start with.
Okay.
I know people say that, oh, Adam was created first and all that, but it doesn't mean that one is superior to the other. The promises
Okay.
of God in the Bible for a man is the same for a woman. And God does not excuse a man for doing certain things. I can cite certain things in the Bible. Of course, I know that people say, okay, what about what Apostle Paul and some other people said? It's just, I think some of these things is actually a function of your background too, and the things that you're exposed to, or the things that were operational at that time. Just like you hear some pastors in Nigeria say certain things, and you're like, there's a way you can actually, based on your own exposure affects your interpretation of the scriptures.
Yeah.
I keep saying that. The way a white person will see certain things in the Bible might be different from the way a black man would see it.
Yeah,
I remember.
obviously. I mean, the cultural.
Yes. I will cite two incidences. One was about a woman who was brought to Jesus, and they said she was caught in the act of adultery. And and they said, okay, the law says she should be stoned and all that, blah blah blah. And Jesus said, if there's anyone here who is not guilty of the same, the men brought her. And I keep wondering, where was the man? She was caught in the act of adultery. She must have been doing something with a man, and they only brought the woman.
The woman.
And you remember the story in the Bible?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And by the time Jesus lifted up his head, they had disappeared because they were also guilty of such things. And something like that happened in Nigeria. They said the woman, an old woman, it happened in one village, I can't remember, whose husband died many years ago. She was caught sleeping with a younger guy, and they took the woman around and shamed her. I'm like, her husband is dead, for crying out loud. So it's not like, and even if the husband was not, is that the right thing? If you do that to men every day, I'm sure probably we won't have a lot of cases. The rate of infidelity in marriage will probably have dropped. There's another story in the Bible too, the daughters of Zelophehad.
Okay.
And they needed something. I don't know, was it Moses?
Joshua or something? Yeah, about their father's inheritance or something.
Yes, their father's inheritance, daughters of Zelophehad. And the law actually says that if you do not have a male child, that means the inheritance goes to somebody else, which means it won't go to your female children.
Okay.
And these girls didn't want that, and they went to meet Moses in the Bible. And I like what Moses did. Under normal circumstances, we could have said, well, this is what the law says, and there's really nothing we can do about it. But Moses went to God, and God said they were right, and that they should be given what belonged to them. I really cannot forget that thing. I didn't get to hear about it until I was in probably my second or third year in the university when I went for a women conference. It was in the church, and they said it, and I've held on to that for so long. So I don't think God sees women as second-class citizens. We are not inferior. Like I always say, a boy child is not superior to a girl child, and a girl child is not in any way inferior. God sees us the same. Nobody is higher than the other. Of course, people will say that, okay, in the homes, like, okay, the man is the head of the home and all that. And like I tell people, well, what obtains in your home is different from what obtains in some other people's, homes.
So how do you negotiate that bit, Because I had a colleague once who said, she stopped going to church because obviously she's not a Nigerian. She stopped going to church because the priest or the pastor or whoever, the preacher told her that, the man is the head of the home. She said, no, God forbid. Then she left. So how do you reconcile that sort of,
you know what? Even that one, I don't even argue with. I think I've said that on the group before. Okay, you're the head of the home. But like I say, a good leader does not even force certain things.
Okay.
And it's not that you are the head of somebody does not mean that you turn the person to a slave. It doesn't mean slavery. It's not slavery. There's a way you do things. You don't enforce things. Once you start trying to enforce it, it means there's a problem somewhere and you really don't deserve it. Okay, like I tell people, my husband is not a feminist. I don't deny that. He's not. But then there were certain things I looked out for when we were dating. And I wouldn't want to get married to a man, that sees me as inferior. I wasn't the one that raised him. Like, I always say that to people. So there are certain things that I might not be able to change about him. There are certain things that I might not be able to enforce. You understand? But then I can make a difference in the lives of my children. You understand? There are certain things I can't force him because of his own background. His mother's tried. But then there are still some things, you pick up a lot of things in the society. Even for people like me, you have to consciously draw some of the things that you pick from the society. So he says something sometimes and I have to correct him. I have
So
two
what
girls
does it say when you correct?
Like, okay, I think there was a time my daughter, I don't know where she picked it from, the younger was like, you are laughing like a boy. And I was like, excuse me, how do boys laugh? And I was like, well, he doesn't know what I mean by that and all that, but they are still there. I said, no, I don't want them to grow up with that thing because already, there's this setback. You just think that you can't do certain things because you're a girl. So there are certain things that the society sells to you, and I don't want them growing up with that. So he knows that, okay, my wife is a feminist and all that, and he knows he doesn't try to enforce his view on me, and I don't try to enforce it on him too. And I believe that it's gradual. But there are certain things like, okay, before we got married, there are certain things that we discussed. He knows that, okay, he's not the kind of person that would think that, oh, a woman is not supposed to work, that kind of a thing. You don't force it on someone. And as much as he can, we don't live together during the week because he works in Lagos. And I have a help. But of course, when he's around and there's nobody to help, he does help.
Yeah, so ultimately, it's not like, okay, yeah, you still do all of those, chores in the house. The more the responsibility still falls on you.
Well, like I said, I have a help, so I
But
supervise.
at the end of the day, you supervise.
But,
I mean, yeah.
I supervise, and he gets to do some things too. He gets to do some things in the house, like the children are like, "Oh, Daddy, come and make pancake for us," and all that, and he does his laundry. He does his laundry, and it's not a spoiled brat that can't do things on his own. So it's
Yeah, I
not the kind
actually
of
do my
guy
own
that would
laundry
just.
myself as well. I really don't understand, when people say, someone has to like.
And where he stays in Lagos, he tidies up. He's not waiting for somebody to come and do it for him. Like he can cook and do a lot of things like that.
I think it's just a form of handicap, really, when people cannot take care of themselves. Men now, especially, can't cook for themselves, can't do this.
I work with colleagues, and when they say something, I'm like, really? When I talk to them, they said they can never sweep the house. I'm like, does it take anything from you? They can't sweep. Their wives washes their clothes. They can't take care of the children. Some things are alien to me. I'm like, really? So my daughter goes to the restroom and she needs somebody to clean up for her, and the dad is neighbor and he can't do it because he's the man of the house or what. They can't cook. So it's the woman washes, the woman sweeps, she takes care of the children, she bathes them. She's the one that takes care of the surroundings, especially the ones who don't have help, and the men feel that they don't need help. That's the one that amazes me the most. And so she does a lot of things, and I'm like, really, how is this person supposed to cope? I have a lot of them in my office, and they just feel that I'm from another planet.
But this area you've gotten, I think this is the real area where a lot of people have a lot of issues with feminism, because like, oh, you're trying to distort the order of things in the home. You're trying to create chaos, so to speak, like asking women not to do this or not to do that. Oh yeah, it's them disrespecting their husbands. How do you then deal with that?
First of all, who put the order? Many of these rules are man-made.
But if it has served generations,
But do you
and
know that
it's
the way it's
working.
even done in Africa is even different from the way it might be done in non-African countries?
Okay.
I think it's about being responsible. Raise your
Yeah,
children
yeah,
to be responsible,
yeah. I think that
irrespective of
I
their
agree
sex.
with that.
Chores are not meant for women alone. They're not meant for girls alone. It's about being responsible. Learn to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that when people now they're outside the country and they cannot afford to get helps, and two of them have to work, they learn some of these things. A Nigerian man that says, I can't do this, gets married to a white person and start doing these things. And you wonder,
He has to.
why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? How come you're not enforcing it? Have you stopped
Yeah.
reading that Bible? So that's the question I ask. They don't enforce these things on their foreigners. Their wives are foreigners, but they want to enforce it on the ones that are African. So
Because you're
according
both
to me,
coming from the same kind of
yeah,
worldview, and it feels
yes,
that there's an unwritten rule that you both understand the nuance, even if it's
yes,
not written down in black and white. And
yeah.
for this one, you can make an excuse and say, "Oh, she doesn't understand," so yeah, no problem. I think,
There are
well,
certain things that I get to do, and like I say, I'm not doing it because it's my role. I'm just doing it out of love.
yeah,
So the fact that I do something for you does not mean that yes, it's your responsibility. So you just have to do it. Even now, there are things that in the home when my husband drops anything for me, like okay, for the month, I still say thank you. It's not like I don't say it's your right or it's just your responsibility. What if the person doesn't do it?
yeah.
So I don't see it as, oh, it's just your role and you just have to do it for me. It's not something you enforce. And if you're a true leader, there are certain things that you shouldn't do. The person should be able to do things for you out of love, not
Yeah.
I'm just being forced and the person sees that as a burden.
That's quite interesting insight there. So in case someone is listening and they want to join your WhatsApp group, what's the contact number?
But they could chat me up on my WhatsApp,
Okay, so what would that be?
0802
0802
467
467
4272.
4272.
Yeah,
Okay,
zero zero
okay,
two
that's
four six
10.
seven
Okay,
4272.
4272. So in case anyone wants to join your advocacy, be a part of what you're doing,
Yes. So I'm
the
willing to
WhatsApp
collaborate with
contact
people that
will
share
be
similar values.
value.
And
Okay, that'll be in case the person is outside of Nigeria. That'll be +234 802 467 4272. Read that again.
yes.
+234 802 467 4272. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation with me. Hopefully, I really wish you all the best in what you're doing. I think we need to make our country a lot safer for women, especially. I mean, Nigeria is when people are attacking feminism, especially here in the West, I always want to point out that look, the reality in Nigeria is totally different because we have a
Yeah.
situation where women are oppressed under the law. I mean,
Yes.
you have laws that are actually very oppressive. I think in Nigeria, women still cannot take bail or something. Maybe
Take
that's
what?
changed now. Bail someone in a police station.
Oh, okay.
She
There are a
needs
lot of
to,
funny things like that.
permission of the husband to do certain things under the law, as
Yes.
in a matter of law,
Yes. Yes.
not just cultural bias. It's a matter of law. And I think some of those things are changing as well. I think in the South is the idea of women not being able to inherit their parents' property
Yes.
is
Yes. Somebody took
changing
that to
gradually.
court some time ago.
Yeah. So I think people like that are those who make our society better for everyone. I think if everybody is able to contribute, whether men or women, if we free everyone to contribute their quota, we'll have a stronger society and a better country.
Yes.
But
And we
it's
should
just,
also remember, okay,
yeah,
sorry to cut
go
you short.
ahead, go ahead.
Okay, we should also remember that this thing started from somewhere. Like I say, I can go to school now. I'm educated because some people actually have to fight these things.
Yeah,
There was a time women were not allowed to go to school.
yeah, it
They
was
were not
strange.
allowed to see the four walls of a school. So we should take it up from there. Some people have done their parts, and we should continue until we get what we want.
Yeah, and even for men who feel that, yeah, these people are trying to attack my place in my home, I think even if you don't agree with this other, I mean, there are other things that you can as well get behind. I mean, the fact that more than many other places in the world, pregnant women are dying in Nigeria. I mean, the maternal mortality
Yes.
rate is probably one of the highest you'll find in the world. I mean, the issue of rape of minors. I mean, 2 years, 3 years. What the heck is that?
Mm.
I think that's something any reasonable human being should be able to get behind. So if you can just put aside, okay, I don't agree with this, or okay, which one do you agree with? Let's not just
Abby.
define life by what we don't agree with. Like, okay, which one do I agree with? And let's all put our voices behind and, kick out a lot of the vices in our society. Anyway, once again, Ololade, thank you very much for coming on. Is there one last thing you would like to say?
Oh, okay. Well, I would just want to say that, like I said earlier, now we are not trying to deny men of their rights. We are just saying we want equal rights and opportunities. That is it. We are not inferior. We are not second-class citizens. We are humans.
We're humans, and we're all humans. So we should all be feminists.
Yes.
All right.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah. Thank you so much.